Okay, yes. So again, I'm going to repeat it one last time. Is there a cause and effect between your journaling and your real-time experience?
Yeah, so I don't think I've written in a couple days. I'm like apartment searching. I'm about to move out, so kind of been busy with that. I've been thinking about writing about that because that's been so like consuming lately and just like really stressful. Just like got to make sure all these things are right. So I think that'll help once I like just sit down and write because everything I've been writing lately has really helped me like I don't know. I feel like I've been, I don't want to say brave, but maybe like braver lately with like being really honest and writing it. And then it makes me feel a little relieved after. Um, I don't know. I don't know if that's like the right way to do it or to say it, but I've been, it's been helping me lately. There's been a couple that are obviously like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to put that out there, but it definitely has been helping me. I would say relieved is probably how I feel.
And then, is there any to probe further, McKenna? I'm gonna now ask you to go way back since the beginning till now, because I know you're moving right now, but like overall, since you first started, um, and it's great, you're feeling relieved. Is there any real time differences in your decision making as well?
I'm putting like myself more into it, whereas before I like was trying to like kind of mask myself and like way fictionalize it, like tiny elements of truth, lots of fiction. And now it's definitely more like journaling the self into it, and like being a little more vulnerable. So I'd say that's probably the change I've seen, like in myself personally, like over time.
All right, thank you so much for that share. Very helpful. Thank you, McKenna. Anyone else? And feel free to go way back.
I'd say for me, it's been really helpful, just in terms of being able to see things and process things. Um, yeah, I think looking back on all the journaling stuff, it's definitely evolved, and this is what I prefer to do more once I'm having those feelings like, well, I want to journal it down. Whether or not I'm going to publish it is, it just depends on what comes out of that journaling session. And definitely looking back, it makes me more proactive and conscious about things I'm doing. Like, okay, remember, show yourself a little more grace in this. It's okay to feel this way. This is, similar to something, I've written previously. So just seeing like those themes that crop up, like anxiety or just feelings of stress, those are usually like the common themes in mine. So I'm beginning to notice those more and see like how I was feeling in that moment. Is that the same as how I'm feeling now, or is it, changing? So just being more aware of that is what I've noticed in my own life.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. And I know you started writing in the second, Katie. So I want to ask you, is there a difference in your, is there a, is there a different, have you noticed any differences in the first and the second? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the second person, it's almost more of an interrogation style writing where using the you, it's like, well, you've done this, not this. So at the same time, it can be very distancing, whereas I'm the interrogator of myself. So it's definitely a lot of a shift from the first person and getting to like see that distance and have that more of a confrontation with myself. Whereas with the first, it's like, this is just how I'm feeling. And then switching to the you, it's like, well, you're doing this, you're feeling this. So it's interesting to see that duality of interrogating myself.
All right. That's an insight that I'm just hearing. That's awesome. Okay, before I go to you, Annalyn, if you don't mind, I'd like to share a little bit, and then I would love for you to share, Annalyn, because usually I go last, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna not go last this time. I'm gonna have Annalyn go last.
Sounds good.
Okay, so Okay. So as you all may have known, I've already written six, like on my 70th journal entry. I stopped counting after 40. So the first, I would say the first 20 or 30 are very grandiose, dramatic, and full of angst, because I was at that point when I first started journaling where I was still in a lot of pain. So a lot of my journal entries, some of them I have not published, and some of them I have, but they were angry, kind of feeling a little like woe is me, and then accusatory, basically. The letters that I wrote, especially to about my exes, they were like more resentful. Um, and then as I started going into the second, um, I would say I started getting out of me and more into the outer world, where I started to just start seeing other things, like for example, just yesterday, um, I noticed that there was an Irish family walking in front of me. I was leaving the Vatican Library, Irish family in front of me, a group of sisters behind me speaking in Chinese. And then she said something about like, I love California. And for some reason, that became a sign for me. So immediately I wrote that. As I was walking, I pulled out my phone and I wrote it down, just described it. And I'm not going to make any interpretations of it, although in my mind I have an interpretation. But on my journal entry, I'm just going to record it as like a documentarian. Like, this is, something I noticed. I found that to be super fun. And uh, it's a way for me to get out of my own, like, id, like my alchemy shadow is just more of like, I'm seeing signs that are gathering around me. I could call it hope. I mean, I would like to call it hope because, and I've been seeing a lot of orange cats, like everywhere. I've been noticing orange cats, and that to me is like very symbolic of something. Um, and so I'm paying attention to patterns and signs, and I'm really believing that. And that's how I've been traveling too. So I went to visit the Leonardo da Vinci Museum, and in there was this Last Supper that was just I was like, oh my God, I need to see this painting in person. So like just little things, and I noticed Mary and Judas were like kind of like head to head, and Judas was whispering something in Mary's ear. And Mary, so like these, I felt, what I felt like? I felt like Tom Hanks in the Da Vinci Code. Like, it felt like I was trying to uncover something. And maybe it doesn't lead to anything. Who knows? But I'm just noticing things now that I've kind of I have closure now. I've absolutely had closure on all my resentments with my exes. And what's amazing also, I like to share is a few months back, I was caught up in some kind of love triangle, and it was very karmic for me. It was, uh, like the shoe is on the other foot now. I hope that's the expression. But the idea is like, I had a resentment against the other woman somewhere in the past. And then I found myself in that position. And so I had to do a lot of journaling from that, because I was serious. I was in a very real time. I was conflicted internally. Like, do I follow my passion or do I follow my purpose? Do I follow my ethics or do I just go with the feeling? And I do believe that writing in the second for me personally helped me with discernment, helped me to know what the right action is for me in my journaling. So I do believe that for me, journaling in the second actually helped me avoid future pains and future, or like, let me say it again. Journaling in the second helped me figure out beyond a shadow of a doubt that I did the right thing. And when I didn't do the right thing, I wrote in the second and I called myself out on it. I don't know if I published it or not, but just the fact that I did it in the second helped me see it plainly. It became very obvious when I wrote it down. So yeah, that's my share on that.
Okay. I think the only way that I can explain it is like when you get a wound, the wound is painful and it gets swollen and it gets red, and that's typically a sign of healing unless you let it get infected. And I think that my experience journaling throughout this time, right now today, I feel like I'm in a fresh wound stage where it hurts and it's really sensitive and all of my feelings are really sensitive, but writing and journaling allows me to get the wound to a place where it's not going to get infected. With that being said, though, I feel like I'm extremely sensitive to the underlying layers of my feelings. I feel like all of my nerves are constantly attuned to every single shift in my feelings all the time. And right now, that's really exhausting. I think it's ultimately beneficial. I think it's ultimately like the only way to have genuine healing and to really process everything that's going on all the time. But definitely right now it's exhausting, it's taxing, and I just feel like I'm constantly trying to catch up like with work, catch up with my life, catch up with my feelings, catch up with my self-care. It just always catching up, and I feel like I'm always having to work through what like maybe 6 months ago would have been like, oh, no big deal, whatever. But as I've journaled and as I've sort of tackled some really important traumatic things I've gone through, those things don't affect me as much anymore. So they don't take up as much space in my consciousness. So now all the things that might have 6 months ago felt small or insignificant because I had more important things to work through emotionally, these are now the forerunning problems. These are now the things that I really have to look at and examine. But at least now I have the tools to do it so that I don't suffer and get an infection from the wounds that happen in day-to-day life.
Wow, Annalyn, I definitely hear you on that. I definitely hear you on that. And by all means, journaling itself is not going to be your cure-all. It's not going to be like, oh, all problems in life will just disappear now that you've, started writing everything and documenting everything down, as we can see from Anne Frank's diary. She wrote so vulnerably and authentically, but that did not prevent her from, getting persecuted. But what it did was it planted a seed, a mustard seed. And that mustard seed grew into many trees. And last year I was at the New York 9/11 memorial, and there was a placard of Anne Frank about the trees that were planted all over the memorial. And it turns out that they took the seed from the tree that was outside of Anne Frank's attic, where she journaled. She would always look up at this tree when she journaled, while hidden in the attic. And so it was that very tree where Anne Frank used to look up and just put herself in nature again. It was the seed of that tree that is now in the 9/11 memorial. So I'm sorry that you're going through a lot, Annalyn, and I'm so grateful that you're with us still hanging in there.
Oh, I wouldn't want to go anywhere. I think, like you said, writing doesn't fix the problem, but it's almost a salve. It's a way, like I said, to help navigate so your emotions and your feelings don't get infected, so they don't fester. Because that's really the threat, right? I feel like your feelings have the potential always to sit inside of you and rot away and ultimately rot you away. And this process, first and second, both of them are an outlet so that that doesn't have to happen, so that you can see the situation in a different way or express yourself to someone else, right? Like, because I can write, I can get that initial expression out someone. I now have done that first step of really identifying, wow, I feel angry, but I'm not. I'm afraid, I'm tired, I'm bitter, like whatever it is underneath that initial feeling. I don't have to throw my anger at somebody who I love's face, because writing allows me to go underneath the anger and see, okay, this is how I really feel. So this underlying feeling is what I need to communicate to my loved one, because my loved one isn't at fault, right? And if I throw anger at them, then that's accusatory. And I don't want to accuse them of anything, because they didn't do anything wrong. So by examining myself deeper through writing, I can then communicate and address the people I love in a positive, helpful way.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Annalyn. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to pause now the recording.